Okay, so we wanted to ask you, like, Naomi is about, you know, embracing your imperfections and basically who you are. So we know you have the Self-Love Saturdays.
Yeah.
We just want to know, like, just can you give us a little bit of how you daily, like, is it a struggle for you to embrace your imperfections?
What's your Naomi look like every day?
Yeah, like what do you do to pump yourself up, or what do you do to like stay accepting of yourself?
Well, I guess it's kind of a mix. I mean, I'm in the place in my life where I'm like past like the insecure age. Like, you know, there's an age where you're kind of like very comfortable with being an insecure person. You like walk the streets as an insecure person, even though you put on makeup. Like, I'm like past that. Like, I'm just so I'm confident in who I am, but I'm also a person. So naturally, I have, you know, some days that are great and some days that are not. But I think it's like I work really hard on my mentality and staying positive. So I'm more aware of just kind of like when I'm about to be like a Debbie Downer. I'm like really just having those outer body experiences, I guess, in the sense of like if something kind of messes me up and I'm just ready to just like pity myself and like nothing works out for me, and that will probably last me for like 2 hours max before I'm like, are you insane? Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, and then I kind of like pick myself up, and I think it's just because I've like somehow, some magical way, like trained my body to want to work more than like pity myself. So like my days of being like down are few, very few in between. And then I also think like, I think this is kind of a blessing. As a generation, I find there's so much inspiration that's always being shared, like through social media, whether it's on your Instagram or your Twitter or somebody posts something on Facebook. So it's almost impossible to be down. Like, just look on your Instagram for like an hour, and like somebody's gonna post something that's like, count your blessings, like be grateful, and you're like, you know what? Oh my God! And like, I had that today. I totally had that today. I had this really random audition, and I was like, this audition is so random. And I like came out of it like, what is my life? Like, what is this? And then I like read something on Instagram that was like, this, basically like this biblical story of like, you know, like God hands you all these blessings, but they're gonna come in unconventional ways. They don't always come how you want them to come. They're not going to look how you want them to look. So, you know, keep your eyes open. Like, don't just take everything for granted. Don't, like, be so, I guess, you know, one track and think you know everything. Like, no, you really don't know what life is going to bring you, and just kind of, like, enjoy the ride. Just kind of go with it. And so it was that moment that, like, after that audition, I was like, yeah, like, stop it. Like, just, like, be a normal person. Like, be grateful. Be just humble and take in, as random as the experience was, just kind of like, you know, at least I'm doing what I want to do. I think that's one thing I realized when I moved to LA too, was that, and I mean not in a negative way, but like everybody does what you do.
Yeah.
Like everybody does. Yeah. But it's in that experience that you're gonna find what truly makes you you. Yeah. So it's good for people to tell you that everybody does what you do. Like, let people tell you that, because it's gonna take you a lot of soul searching to really find like your personal uniqueness. And when I first moved to LA, it was kind of the same thing. Everybody used to say like, why are you gonna go to LA? There's so much more competition. And I was just I was very confident in the fact that I was like, even if there's 100 girls, not all 100 of these girls are gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like, they're all just gonna be there, yeah, but that doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
And you do have those moments where you're like, I'm gonna go to LA, I'm gonna book a series, I'm gonna move into this place over here. Like, you just think it's gonna be so smooth.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's bumpy, but it's bumpy for everyone. It's bumpy for the person that you think is as successful as they come. Like, it's bumpy for everybody there. So I think that's the only thing that can kind of reassure you. It's like, every person here is having their challenges. Like, nobody is just smooth sailing. But it is that city where, yes, you will, like, you know, I always I'm like, I meet a lot of girls that are actresses and singers. I meet that girl all the time, over and over and over again. But you have to find in that, like, what is your uniqueness? What is it that's going to make you stand out of this crowd? And I think LA is a good city to, like, kind of find that out about yourself, because you will easily, I think, get lost in the sameness of everybody. Like, I once dyed my hair blonde, and at the time I did it when I was living in LA, and literally when I did it, I felt so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, my hair is blonde. And then all of a sudden, it was like every party I went to, I had conversations with like 3 other black girls who just dyed their hair blonde. Like, moisturized. And I was like, this sucks. I am not unique. Like, it's so, you know, but it, like, I have to do these things. Like, I have to experience that.
Yeah.
To, like, you know, like, just kind of figure it out. Like, what do I need to do to really stand out here? And not in, like, oh, just look at me, but just be confident in who I am. That even if I am going to be blonde and every other chick is going to be blonde too, it's like,
Right.
unique to me in some way. But it's, LA is totally that place. Um, okay, well, I had the idea for Black Actress maybe 6 years prior to doing it. Like, I just had it for a long time, and I knew I wanted to do this thing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make like a feature or a short, like do something and just put it on the festival circuit. Like, I really was very unsure. Then when I was in New York, and I went to this panel. My boyfriend was speaking on this panel, and he does documentaries and hip hop and direct stuff. So he was on this panel with all these other Black filmmakers who had to turn to the web. And Issa Rae was on it, and Numa and Dennis from Black and Sexy TV, and just Tony Clomax, who has this great web series called 12 Steps to Recovery. And they were all talking about how they, you know, had approached studios and had all these great ideas, but just couldn't get them greenlit, just couldn't get people to get behind them. And instead of waiting and just being bitter, they went to the web. Every single one of them had to turn to the web. And so it was in that, you know, watching them and kind of just seeing in a sense, I guess, people doing stuff that you wanted to do. Like, I want to write, I want to produce something. So, and it was after that that my boyfriend and I were really talking, and he was like, you know, why don't you develop Black Actress like that? Like, why don't you just make it into something for the web? And at first I was like, really, you think so? Like, making it episodes? Because I had this feature in my head. And he was like, yeah, just see. So I really started just simple writing. And then my co-producer, Brian Walker, who's my producing partner, we went to him, and I was like, yeah, I have this idea. I think I'm going to try and see if we can do it for web. And I just told him the basics. I was like, I have this idea. It's a scripted format, but it's meets documentary. It's going to include these interviews with celebrity actresses, but you still see like this scripted story. And I was like, it's new. It's really, you know, some people might be confused, but this is just how I see it. And he liked it from day one. And so we right away just thought about, like, how do we want to distribute this? Like, where do we want to put this? What was it going to be? And he knew Issa's production partner. So he reached out to him, to Issa's production partner, and had a conversation with them. And they just liked the idea. They really like this was before we had anything, like literally nothing at all. And they just liked the idea. And then we went from there. And I shot like the simplest visual ever in my apartment with my friends that didn't even really like go with the show, to be quite honest with you, but it was like the only thing I could think of to do on like the smallest budget that was like to give somebody just an idea. And it was like my friends basically doing an audition, but them all being like different types of Black actresses. Like, and I just like, some of them are light skin and dark skin and curly hair and straight hair and tall and short. I just tried to just make it as diverse as possible, because the point of the show for me was kind of like that, like, we're all going through this, like not just some of us, but every single one of us has this journey. And so from there, that was really like Issa saying, yeah, she wanted us to put it on her channel. And then I finished writing, And then we did the crowdfunding. We did crowdfunding for it, which was scary and hard, but we needed to do it. I didn't know any other way, really. And then we got to shooting. So, yeah, it was one of those things where it was like this really smooth and seamless process from day one. And I think that's just kind of sometimes when projects are just supposed to happen, that they are just smooth. Like you're not pulling teeth to do them. And this was one of those projects that it was like, it wasn't pulling teeth by any means. Like it was just this very easy going thing. And so I was really lucky for that.
Awesome.
Everybody in this generation is pursuing an unconventional career, like is pursuing something that their parents don't agree with, or like that their cousins are like, what are you doing? Like every person is doing something like that. So everybody can understand those elements of the show, like just the ups and downs. So yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of people who have told me like, you know, the interviews or just the theme inspired them, even though they're not an actor, which I think is great. I was like, that's the point of the show. I mean, it's always crazy. It's always crazy because based on my life experiences or my friends' experiences, and like, I mean, the acting industry always has crazy things. Like it just, you know, if you open your eyes to it, there's comedy in it nonstop. So I mean, it's one of those things that's what I try to explore, is just the comedic side of the ups and downs of being an actress. But so there's a lot of that. I think you now go a little bit more on a journey with Corey of just seeing Corey and her own self-sabotage in a way, because I think before you kind of really got to see like what she gets to see on a regular basis in her world, but now you'll definitely get to see a little bit more of learning how to get out of your own way, which I just think is a big part of being in entertainment, in life, period. We all have to kind of learn that. Like, how do I not block my blessings? And how do I, like, actually just live like a normal person? How do I do those things? And Corey is not capable of that. So that's kind of what you see the whole time. And then there's a few new characters, and it's kind of also exploring just a little bit more of like the real deal of the acting industry, like the actual what auditions are really like. Whereas before the first season, I kind of looked at it as also like an introduction for people who don't know anything about acting. Just going to, you know, having an acting class and just simpler auditions, but it's kind of gets more complicated than that to kind of open people's eyes to what that looks like.
So like I was asking, who's your biggest inspiration right now? I mean, it could be someone in the entertainment field, you know, parent, a family member, whatever, but we'd love to know kind of what's that person. I know my person changes every like 7 months, I feel like. So I don't know if you're kind of like that, or it really does.
Yeah, I can never really pinpoint at somebody really specific. I mean, honestly, right now, truly, I think I'm just inspired by Maya Angelou's life and her body of work. I'm very inspired by that, and I mean, I think it's just because it's like, you know, this always kind of happens, like when somebody passes, like you just kind of like, you know, you get to see everything because we're all talking about them all the time. And so, you know, I was very fortunate in my life that I did a movie with her when I was a little kid, and so I was really excited. But so I've always been inspired by her. But I think just in this period, for whatever reason, getting to see just the diversity of her life, like just all the things that this person accomplished and did and tried, is just, that's very inspiring to me. Like that, you know, like she really, I think she really embodied like that this is a journey, like that we are on a complete journey, and that every element of this journey like helps you and affects you and grows you and changes you to move on to the next phase and to make the next phase better, and you know, to do something like that's, I think, when I look at just everything that people are showing with her life, that's completely what I see. And so I find that very inspiring, just like how grounded it is, and like that's why she knew herself so well, is because she just had so much experiences and to just talk about, you know. So I think that to me is just really awesome. But I'm always inspired usually by my mom. My mom is probably my biggest inspiration in terms of just somebody who's a positive person and a confident person. My mom has like literally always been the most confident person ever, and try her best to just make me confident. But you know, I'm not even half as confident as my mom. My mom is like outrageously confident. So when I look at her in person, I'm like, I think that's amazing. Like, I really hope like that I can get to that level of confidence that she has. So my mom is like my constant inspiration. But right now in this time, I am very inspired just by the life that Maya Angelou led and everything she did. I think it's awesome.
Something like that.
Okay, well, I guess, okay, I'll
Right.
tell a story. This is just a story of like learning to embrace who you are. So I have a mole on my forehead, and I used to be so embarrassed by it. I used to just be so like, oh my gosh, how could I cover this up? It used to bother me like crazy. And I was somewhere, I was in St. Vincent at the airport, and this woman came over to me. She was like, "You're on Degrassi, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Yeah, I was looking at you," and I was like, "I think that's her, I think that's her." And she was like, "And then you know what?" And then I saw the mole, and that's how I knew it was you. And I remember at the time being like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then a few years later, but I was still a little bit unsure about it. And I was telling my friend, I was just having an open conversation with my friend, and we were just talking about insecurities. And I was like, you know what makes me insecure? I was like, honestly, my mole makes me really insecure. And this is how confident my mom is. All my life, my mom has called it a beauty mark. She was never called it a mole. She was like, your beauty mark, da 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 da. You know? So I was like, I always used to tell my friend that I was like, you know, if ever I could, if I'm doing a job, I'll ask makeup artists to cover it up. Like, you know, I'm always really embarrassed by it. And she was like, you shouldn't be. She was like, it's what is the identity of your face. Like, that's what makes you literally you. And it was that moment that I think that, like, it really hit me, that I was like, it's true. Like, that's literally, like, if there was anything other than, like, literally writing my name on myself. Like, yeah. That is it. Like, that's what it is. And so it was like I kind of started to look at everything about myself like that. Like, my hair is my hair. It's not going to be any looser. It's not going to be any tighter. It's going to grow how it's going to grow. This is my hair, and this is what makes it unique to me. And everything about me is unique to me. I shouldn't try to look like other people or want to take away the things that I have, because they are, at the end of the day, it's all encompassing of just who I am as a person and my own experiences. And so it was kind of that moment, and also like the sinking in of like what I talked about earlier with, you know, being in LA, and people are always like, well, what makes you unique? Like, why should I talk to you over all the other 50 brown-skinned girls that sing and dance and do all the things you know how to do? And so it was those things that I was like, well, I now know what makes me me.
Right.
It's like, I know that I have a big personality. I know I have a loud speaking voice. I know these things. These are, you know, quote unquote imperfections that I've embraced to being my perfection. And it's my unique story, and I think that's something that's kind of like all of us have that. Like, this is our own personal imprint into the world. Like, your style, your hair, your features, every single element of them. And so that's kind of how I learned to just like embrace my imperfections and see them in a whole other way. Just see them as like, they're my uniqueness. They're the only thing that I have that I can truly say is Andrea Lewis. It is not anybody else's. There's nobody else in this world walking around with this exact same thing. I could be, and I do, mind you, I see girls all the time that might have a mole in a close place. It's similar. I have a friend who people think we look just alike, and she happens to have a mole right here, And I think it's hilarious because people just think we look so much alike, and it's one of those things that you're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, we don't. Like, we don't
Yeah.
look just alike. These are the things that make us unique. And so that's kind of how I see imperfections, is it's like, none of us have imperfections. These are just all of the things that make us a human being. Like, and it's these things that when you really look at people, I think that like make an impact. You know, like Whoopi Goldberg doesn't have any eyebrows. Like, that's what makes her Whoopi Goldberg in a sense. Like, just that in itself, that unconventional thing about her. Even down to like Rihanna going out naked in a dress, like that's what makes Rihanna Rihanna at the end of the day. Like, we could all argue and dispute it and say what we want about it, but it's like, that is truly what makes her her. That boldness, that level of confidence to do something like that. People can ask who else would do that. Nobody. Nobody else is even going to try it. Because it's not for anybody else.
Right.
You know, and so I think it's like, those are the things that makes us who we are, is just being, you know, able to say, this is how I was made, and it's for a reason. And so the longer I fight it, the harder this life is going to be. The closer I come to just being comfortable in this body, in this face, and this voice, and everything about myself, is just the easier and the happier you are. Like, you just feel so much happier. And it's like, yeah, I'm always looking for less and less makeup. Like, I'm always I always look for, I do this, and this is the craziest thing to do. I type in YouTube tutorials for like how to find like less makeup. I never find it, never, because it's like, it's almost like the polar opposite. YouTube is for me. So, but it's like, it's one of those things that I'm like, yeah, I have a friend that doesn't wear makeup ever, and I'm always like, I'm in awe of it. Because I'm like, you literally just embrace how you look. You wake up in the morning, you're like, this is my face today, okay, period, I'm going out.
Right.
Some days I could not imagine doing that. But it's that, like, seeing that level of confidence, it's like, that's what makes her so beautiful to me, is that, like, that it's like, I'm like, this is what you get. What you see is what you get, and this is it. That's, you know, her beauty is like, you know, putting on her clothes, making her hair done. That's her beauty. And so I think those type of things are really beautiful, and that is embracing your imperfections and just making them perfect for you.